I've spent a lot of time thinking about why really good coaches, consultants, and experts struggle to consistently get clients. Because it's a strange problem when you think about it. You've got the expertise, you've got the experience, you've helped people, you've got results, and yet you're still waking up every morning wondering, where's my next client coming from? And I think it's what's happening in a lot of these businesses is actually pretty interesting. They don't have an expertise problem. They don't necessarily even have an offer problem. They have a client acquisition system problem. And that's a very different thing. You can be incredibly good at what you do, but being good at what you do and being known by the people who need what you do are two completely different things. And I think that's something that gets overlooked all the time because as experts, we tend to think if I'm really good at this, eventually people are going to find me. But that's not really how it works. Your ideal client doesn't know what's inside your head. They don't know the experiences you've had. They don't know the mistakes you've made. They don't know the patterns you've learned to recognize. They don't know your perspective. They don't know what they don't know about you. So somehow you've got to make that expertise visible. And that's where content becomes incredibly powerful. But, and this is important, I'm not talking about simply posting more stuff. I think one of the worst pieces of advice you can give an expert is you just need to create more content. Because, okay, what does that mean? Monday morning, what should I post? Tuesday, what should I post? Wednesday, I saw somebody do this trendy thing. Maybe I'll try that. And suddenly you're creating content because you're supposed to create content, not because it has anything to do with acquiring the clients you actually want. And that's a completely different problem. I think the question should be, what conversation is already happening in the mind of my ideal client? That's where I would start. What are they worried about? What are they frustrated about? What are they trying to accomplish? What have they already tried? What didn't work? What are they afraid to admit? What are they hoping will change? Because if you understand those things, you can create content that makes somebody stop and say, that's me. And that's a really powerful moment. But, and this is where I think some marketing goes wrong again. I don't want you to stop at, that's me. Because if all you're doing is describing someone's pain back to them, you're really just kind of describing the water while they're drowning in it. And I don't think that's particularly helpful. The content needs to go somewhere. It needs to say, here's why this might be happening. And then here's another way of looking at it. And then here's what could actually be possible if you solve this. That's where hope comes into the picture. So let's say you're talking to a consultant who's making $5,000 to $15,000 a month, and they've got clients. They're good at what they do, but every month they're wondering, where's my next client coming from? You can tell them, you're frustrated, you're anxious, you're worried about revenue. Okay, they already know that. What they probably don't know is why that's happening. Maybe they've built a business around referrals. Maybe they've got social media accounts, but no real content strategy. Maybe they're sending DMs, but they're treating everyone like a prospect instead of starting actual relationships. Maybe their offer is good, but doesn't clearly differentiate them. Maybe their content demonstrates expertise, but never actually shows up in front of their ideal prospects. Imagine instead that you have a system that targets your ideal prospects based on the qualification criteria you most value, then starts a personalized conversation like none they have seen before. Then they encounter your content and they see you explain something that they've been struggling with. Then they watch a deeper conversation where you actually demonstrate how you think. Maybe they see a client story and some of your client testimonials. Maybe they go to your website. Maybe they watch a few more videos. And by the time they actually raise their hand and talk to you, they aren't a stranger anymore. You aren't a stranger anymore. They've already started a relationship with you. That's a completely different sales environment. And that's really where the term relationship marketing came from for me, because I don't think marketing and relationships should be separate things. Traditional marketing often says, get attention, then get the lead, then get them on a call, then close the call. But real relationships don't really work that way, right? You don't meet somebody for the first time and immediately ask them to marry you. There's a progression. You become aware of someone, you become interested, you discover that you have something in common, you learn more about them, you develop trust, you decide you like the way they think, and eventually you may decide, I want to work with this person. Now, obviously, a business relationship isn't a marriage, but the psychological progression is surprisingly similar, and I think our marketing should respect that. And that's why I'm such a believer in thought leadership content. Not because everybody needs to become a celebrity, not because you need 1 million followers, certainly not because you need to become some kind of social media personality. Thought leadership to me is much simpler. It's your perspective, your experience, your stories, your way of connecting the dots. And that's incredibly difficult for somebody else to copy. They can copy your headline, they can copy your offer structure, they can copy your website, but they can't replicate your thinking, the way you think out loud. That's why I think video is so powerful. People don't just hear what you know, they get to experience how you think. Now, eventually, we have to go beyond simply creating good videos, because good videos sitting on a LinkedIn page aren't necessarily a client acquisition system. There's got to be somewhere for your relationship to go. And that's where the bigger relationship marketing ecosystem comes together. You've got your offer, you've got your thought leadership content, you've got a way to nurture somebody who wants to go deeper, and you've got ways to initiate genuine conversations with people who may be a fit. And when they schedule a call, you have a process that continues the relationship rather than suddenly turning into a sales pitch. Those pieces should all work together. And that's the difference between content marketing and a client acquisition system built around relationships. And here's where it gets exciting for me. What do my clients actually want? They want to stop worrying about where their next client is coming from. They want to be able to focus on their clients. They want to build their business. They want to make more money. They want to have some freedom. And eventually, they want a system that doesn't require them to personally do every single piece of it. That's why I'm so interested in systems, because a system gives you something that tactics don't, predictability, and predictability creates confidence. If you know your offer is strong, you know your content is attracting the right people, you know there's a mechanism for turning attention into conversation, you know there's a way to qualify those conversations, and you know how to have a great sales conversation. Then you don't have to wake up every Monday wondering, where's my next client? You can actually get on with running your business. So when I talk about relationship marketing, that's really what I'm talking about. Not more posts, not more leads, not more spam, not another funnel hack. I'm talking about taking the expertise you already have and turning it into ideas that your ideal clients actually care about. Using those ideas to become visible and build trust, creating a journey that allows people to go deeper, starting genuine conversations, and then having a sales conversation that feels like a natural continuation of the relationship. That's the system, and I think there's something really liberating about it, because you don't have to become someone else to make it work. You don't have to become a salesperson. You don't have to become an influencer. And you don't have to chase anymore. You become more visible as yourself to the people that you're uniquely equipped to help. And then you build a system around that. You stop chasing and you start attracting your dream clients. And that's really the promise of relationship marketing.